one time, we may need very individualistic and aggressive people. At another time, we may need very cooperative, team-working people. At another time, we may need people who are full of interest in dexterous manipulation of the external world. At another time, we may need people who explore into their own psychology and are introspective.
Well, I could listen to Alan Watt's voice all day long.
No knowing.
I think we better get going with this good old podcast. Welcome back, Terrifying Enlightenment, episode number 10 for the online stuff and something like 13 for what we've actually done live in studio. So we've got a full house today. We've got Christo, our main man. We've got Shar.
Hello.
We've got Sean, our resident philosopher who comes out with the skeptical questions, which we all love. Hi. And we've got a special guest, Lloyd Chambers, who is here to tell us about his life and his all his business practices. And we're excited to find out what Lloyd is doing with his life. Let's go straight into that, Lloyd. You were over in Las Vegas recently gambling. Obviously.
yeah. Well, look, you can never get enough gambling in. No, well, what it was is I have a business where we share one of the world's number one superfoods. So it's a medicinal mushroom from the mountains of China. As we all know, the Chinese know a little bit about natural medicine, as they invented it. So they ranked this number one in the world for healing the human body, right? So I partnered with a company. I have a franchise, online franchise. This is the way the world is going these days. Bricks and mortar is over. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly expensive. 8 out of 10 people fail. So I'd rather fail with a low investment than a high investment.
That's a good plan, I think, yeah.
So with that, they had an idea to put that inside the number one habit on planet Earth, which just so happens to be coffee, which most of us are drinking right now.
Okay.
And therefore, normally coffee is acidic.
Yeah.
So you drink a cup of coffee and you feel great for a little while, and you have a crash.
Mm-hmm. That's my life. That's
right,
me avoiding
coffee.
We
were talking about this earlier, right?
Yeah, I drank coffee for years, and then I kind of put two and two together that I was having that exact experience. Real good feelings for an hour, and then kind of a really low kind of anxiety feeling for about 6 hours, and it just...
Wow.
The plus wasn't worth the minus for me.
Right. And did you get heart palpitations, shakes, and you know?
Yeah, but only if I hadn't had a coffee in a while. If I was drinking coffee regularly, I would have the good feelings for about an hour where I'd be quite productive, be able to focus, be very creative, and then I wouldn't get the jitters afterwards, but I would just get a strong feeling in my chest of just discontent. Wow. And I couldn't focus it on anything. And so I realized after years of it, because I just thought, oh man, I'm just anxious about life. I must be worried about everything. But then later I realized actually the worry in my mind is coming from the feeling in my body, not the other way around.
Right.
And so now I've been able to kind of go, okay, if there's this feeling in my chest, I've probably ingested something that's making me feel this way, and I just need to fucking chill and let it pass.
Exactly.
And so yeah, that's my experience with coffee. But if you can tell me about coffee that's not going to make me feel like that, bang it, I'm back on that train.
Right. Because you see, the thing about it is people love coffee.
Yeah.
So I went into a coffee shop recently, and there's a thing on the wall, and it says, you can tell, I drink my coffee from a clear mug, so you can tell my level of look at this, it's escaping me right now, of tolerance. Yeah. That's the word I'm thinking of. So in other words, it's a necessity. So literally that person can't survive without coffee, and it dictates how well they're feeling. So people see coffee as a necessity in the morning, and I suppose how many coffee drinkers who forget to drink their coffee?
Not many.
It doesn't happen, right? And so everyone I tell about this, they say, you mean I can drink coffee again? This is great. So, we've shared this with lots of people around the world. There's lots of people drink it. So Manny Pacquiao, for example, gets heart palpitations drinking normal coffee.
Okay.
If somebody was intelligent enough to give it to Manny and say, hey, Manny, this won't give you heart palpitations. And he's like, I don't believe you. Right? We're Irish, right? So we're skeptical as well, right? So Manny was pretty skeptical. And he said, okay, well, let me try it.
Yeah.
So he takes a little sip. He said, wow, I think I still feel okay. Takes another sip. He's like, wow, this is like normal coffee. This is the way I used to feel when I drank coffee before, right? He has 4 cups, hits the bags like
4 cups. He liked it.
Yeah, he liked it that much. So, but then he had a great pad session.
Yeah.
So he rings the guy afterwards and he says, what the hell was in that coffee? And he said, well, it's something we can help a lot of people in the Philippines with. That's what it is. So the reishi is known in China. It's called Lingzhi.
Mm.
So you ask a Chinese person, they know it's a national treasure. They revere it more than gold and silver. They've got statues of the emperors with 20-foot or 50-foot statues with 20-foot reishi.
Wow.
You know, so they recognize it.
Yeah, no, I used to take, I still take a mushroom complex,
Right.
and Reishi's in it. So
Brilliant.
I'm
brilliant.
aware of the immune system benefits and a lot of different things, but not specifically Reishi, but just the mushroom complex in
Right,
general.
right.
So I know how powerful they can be.
So you're a fan of Paul Stamets? I'm
Yeah, big
assuming.
time. Yeah.
Right, right. So he's got a book called Medical Mycology.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming you guys have delved into at least a little bit. So there are 24 conditions that medicinal mushrooms act to improve in the body. Okay, and 23 of them are worked on by Reishi. The next one is something called cordyceps, which is a very weird mushroom. By
The way it looks.
Yeah,
The way it
it's like
grows.
fingers, you know.
It grows on caterpillars inside them.
Yeah,
And
I've
ki-
seen
and-
it.
I heard about this.
It's
Yeah.
Grows out of the head or something.
Yeah,
It's dark, man. It's
I have
dark.
like a special interest in cordyceps, just from from working as a physio.
Okay,
That's the new mushroom that's being put into a drug called Gilenya,
right,
which works on MS.
right.
Um,
Right.
But they're charging like 4,000 a month or something
Of
for
course,
this drug.
of course they are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's-
healthier
it's-
humans become,
Right,
the
right.
worse off the caterpillars are. Fuck those caterpillars. We're all for the humans.
I love it. Yeah, but it's interesting. Cordyceps
That's
is
the other one.
yeah, it's the second one, right? So there's reishi, and then there's reishi with a capital R. Okay, so I'm gonna explain what I mean by that. You can go down to your local shop. I'm not gonna mention any names or anything, but on the high street, your health food store, and you get reishi, but it's like tincture of reishi or smell of reishi or whatever, right? And then you got organic reishi, but it's grown in a bag, but they don't use pesticides and herbicides. Why? Because mushrooms don't need them, and they call that organic. That's not organic either. So obviously, Mother Nature, we're in business with Mother Nature. 32 billion years of success. I think I'll go with her, right? So mushrooms have three parts. They have the part under the ground, which is called mycelium, which is basically like their central nervous system. So if you look at a picture of us, where you're only showing the central nervous system, it looks like roots, right? And it looks really weird if you've ever seen it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's exactly the same with a mushroom, and that's how they communicate through the forest floor. It's how all nature communicates, and cooperation, mutual aid, all that sort of stuff. And it also acts on the body in a similar way. So it nurtures the immune system, the central nervous system, nourishes the brain, and so on, right? Then there's the flowering body of a mushroom, and then there's the spores, which are the reproductive part, which obviously are the powerhouse of the mushroom. So similarly with reishi, the mycelium grow in the first 12 days, and then you have the spores, which happen at about 28 weeks, but they only happen when they grow in the natural environment. So when they grow as they were traditionally grown in China. So the company have a exclusivity agreement with the Chinese government, who I think we can agree aren't going out of business anytime soon. And they have that certified organic 100% and USDA certified, etc. So with that, you put that inside a coffee, and you'll find that
It
the
counteracts.
effects that you expect to get from coffee, such as a high and a crash, jitters, shakes, heart palpitations, flip your stomach, it's based on it being acidic. Reishi is the most alkaline superfood found in nature. So when you put that inside, it makes the coffee an alkaline coffee. So people notice sustained energy release. There is caffeine in it, but it's being released over a longer period of time, and it's being detoxed. So there's a raise in oxygen in the blood. The liver and kidneys are flushing at the same time with there's loads of phytonutrients, antioxidants, all that sort of stuff. So you're drinking coffee, but you're feeling healthier with every sip. That's the idea.
Where will we get some of this stuff?
You can get it from me, or you
Yeah.
can get it from my website. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and what's the website?
The website is changethelens.
LENS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
.myorganogold.com. It's very long,
Yeah.
but
Changethelens.myorganogold.com. Cool.
We put it on the links.
Yeah,
Crystal will
we
put
can-
it on the
I'll
links.
sort that
I
out,
said
yeah.
we
I'll
as a
sort
five
that
penny part of it.
Crystal, sort that out.
It's just a
Crystal's
side
is on that.
or a question just with reishi in general. If it wasn't in coffee and you were taking it as a supplement, because it's highly alkaline, it's said that if we're in high states of stress all the time, that our pH is more acidic.
Right.
And as a result has detrimental effects on the body and the immune system.
Right.
So surely then if you're putting alkaline reishi mushroom into it, it's probably trying to neutralise
Right.
within your body. You probably don't know the answer to that, but I assume it's good for that.
It most certainly is. And luckily we have a group with 10,000 people in it drinking it every day who got some incredible health coincidences. in
Oh.
there. So because of the fact when you have a natural substance, regardless of whether it does something or not, you're not allowed to make a health claim.
Right.
It's particularly when it's true, ironically enough.
When it actually does work.
Right.
Can we make money off this from making it into a pill? No. Well, then you're not allowed to talk about it.
Right. So basically the way it works is if you get something in nature and you can split it up into its constituent parts, establish which parts do what, then change it into a synthetic version, bang it back together in a different configuration. You can put a name on it and you can sell it and say it does anything based on clinical trials, obviously.
It's the same with psilocybin. If you're trying to use that with magic mushrooms, it's basically, we're administering psilocybin in a clinical setting.
Yeah.
Instead of just giving them goddamn mushrooms.
Oh, no, it's so
psilocybin, you know?
ridiculous.
And that has other things in it that's probably not just psilocybin that probably benefits the experience.
Of course.
So anytime we try and scientize things, it tends to take away from it rather than add to
Ruins it.
It does indeed, yeah.
So yeah.
And so to answer that, when you take apart something, reishi works better when it's on as it is naturally.
Yeah, of course.
So you take it apart, it doesn't work as well. So they've done clinical trials, 3,674 clinical trials on reishi, and by its two other names, which is Ganoderma and Lingzhi. So that's how many between all of them in something called PubMed.
Yeah.
So PubMed is where
Too
all the
familiar with
medical
PubMed.
literature is being published. Now, to be fair, not everything that's published in PubMed is legitimate
No, it's not.
or done by people who know what they're doing. But you don't have 3,763 that are all incorrect, realistically, right? And they're all proven that there's no interactions with any other medication and that there's no side effects without exclusion.
Okay.
So, for example, people who are doing chemo, they have zero changes in their liver and kidneys doing chemo while consuming Ganoderma. There's tons and tons of that. Nonetheless, you still can't say.
You still can't say it.
But, so it's bizarre.
It's
really
like the
bizarre.
turkey tail mushroom as well. It was trialled. Paul Stamets trialled that with his mother. I don't know if you read that.
Right.
She had terminal cancer at the age of 83. They were doing turkey tail mushrooms combined with chemo.
Right.
And
It kept her immune system up.
it kept her immune system up during the treatment, and she fought the cancer, and she's still alive.
Right.
She was basically terminal.
She was going to die, like.
Right. And if you have a look in that group, you're going to notice we have quite a few things like that.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to go into it on the radio, but you're welcome to check
absolutely.
them out. Yeah.
People can now fly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Disclaimer, I can't prove that. I was going to ask you...
From the ground up.
Sorry?
From the ground up.
From the ground up, exactly. I was going to ask you about... It's gone out of my head now, but the book's in front of me, so I'll ask you about that. So you have a book here, Visualization to Realization. What was the, first of all, inspiration to write it? And secondly, what's the content and how's it been received and everything else?
Right, okay. Well, it's been received very well from what I can gather based on the people that are communicating with me about it. We also have a course as well where we teach people essentially how to find their life's purpose. There's lots of people out there that will tell you how to establish a goal. That if you go after a goal and you have belief and faith, that you can achieve your goals, right? As long as you emotionally connect to them. However, what happens when you hit your goal? You just stand around in a field going, okay, great, so I'm here now. Now what?
And
right?
sad.
Yeah.
Because you want a new goal.
Right.
Let's think if people don't believe that, then just look at a million different people. Let's say Avicii. What, like, superstar, living the lifestyle. No, I'm depressed.
What about the most recent one, Flint?
Yeah,
Keith Flint?
Prodigy, you know.
What?
There's two ways to...
He killed himself. When? The other day.
over the weekend.
I didn't know.
Yeah, man.
Holy
He's,
shit.
I loved him, man.
Yeah.
What a performer.
So-
What age was he? Like
49.
49, yeah. There's two ways to be unhappy: to get what you want, and to not get
And to
what
not
you
get
want.
what you
So like, if you get what you want, you're going to like necessarily. Then you're like, oh, I'm still unhappy. So what is the fundamental thing that's actually making me happy? And unless you figure that out, then you'll spend your life chasing goals that aren't going to actually bring you what you're looking for, which you might think is money, because you might think more money will make you happy, but that may not be the case either. Anyway, I'm taking over. Go ahead.
Yeah, the thing, it's an interesting topic because in Ireland we have a very unhealthy relationship with the concept of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think the world has.
it's particularly in Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's lonely at the top. Says who? I'm like, I mean, we hear this. These are like, I can't think of the
Talking
word.
about mega
for
rich,
them.
is it?
No, but just the concept that it's lonely at the top.
Mm.
Money is the root of all evil.
Mm.
It's easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven.
Yeah.
We hear all these things, and you can probably finish these for me,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't make them true.
No, absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with money or having money or earning money, but just if you're looking for that to be the thing that makes you happy, that's where you're going to go wrong.
Exactly.
But if you have happiness without it, you're going to have happiness with it.
Right.
So, my God. Like,
we were talking about this. It's like a magnifier.
yeah,
Yeah.
If you're an asshole,
you're going to be a
you're gonna be
serious
a
asshole.
serious asshole. But if you're a nice person, it gives you more ways to help people.
Look at Musk. Like, the guy just wants to innovate and help society run itself better. And then you someone like Trump, who just wants to be an egotistical maniac. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, when we're talking about intelligent people doing things intentionally, I don't know if the second person there qualifies, but I know
That's stupid. Eckhart Tolle says it in his book, stupid intelligence, or intelligence and stupidity combined. I think that's what he says.
Right. Yeah. See, the thing
They're
about it is
dangerous.
that people assume that you need to know more to do more, but it's just not true.
Mm.
So you can go get more qualifications, you
Mm-hmm.
get more degrees, but everyone else is getting more degrees. So
Yeah.
then you end up in the same place anyway. Whereas I was thinking about this, I did a degree in anthropology a long time ago now. And I remember thinking at the time, like, what did I do that for? Like, what do I get? What the hell do I get out of this? Like,
It seems to me that the people who get degrees in anthropology tend to be really interesting people, though. Like, it's like Graham Hancock, I think, is an anthropologist. Who else is working with him?
Oh, the Randall.
Yeah, Randall Carson is an anthropologist, and I can't think of some other people, but it seems to be interesting people study anthropology. So maybe that's why you did it, because you're interesting. Like.
Possibly. It was very good, very handy at parties, I'll give you that. But
Did you know?
Stories and stuff.
But no, the thing about it is that I realized subsequently, right? So I travel off around the world. I was teaching English as a foreign language in Thailand, in Greece, in Spain, France, all over the place, and also here in Ireland. And then the recession happened. And it happened to everybody.
Yeah.
So a lot of people actually had made business before the recession. Everything went pear-shaped, and now they have not gone back into business because they thought it was their fault, right? Which
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's about fear. When you make your decisions out of fear or
Yeah.
love, you can't do both, right? So I came back to Ireland and I was looking in the newspaper, because we used to look in newspapers. And I was thinking, well, where am I going to get a job?
Yeah.
Because there isn't any.
Yeah.
So not only am I not going to get a good job, but I'm not qualified for it anyway because I've got a degree in anthropology.
Yeah.
So it essentially makes me unqualified for almost every job. And when you go into a job where the person interviewing you doesn't know what your degree is, they feel uncomfortable and also don't give you the job because they think you want their job, right? so it's a bit of a torn, edge. So anyway, so I got a job, and it said in the line, opportunity. I was like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
Right? Because I thought
Pyramid scheme.
Right, that means I'm not going to get paid. It's going to be commission only. This is not good, right? So little did I realize that was just me being small-minded and also entitled and lazy, because I'm a millennial, right? And I'm sure you guys can relate, no doubt, right? So I ended up going door to door selling makeup in Dundalk. Okay, now I'm not against Dundalk, but the part of Dundalk where we were walking around wasn't the nicest part.
I've heard it's a shithole. Sorry, Dundalk people. I don't know what Dundalk is like, but I've heard it's a shithole.
Right,
Yeah,
well,
a
this
lot of
part
people
of
say
it
it
most certainly was, right? So
I'm not saying you're a shithole. I've never been there, by the way.
I remember sitting
heard.
down at lunchtime, and he showed me, look, you've got an opportunity to build a team and run an office. And I said, well, I don't have any other options right now. I don't have any opportunities. I have no options. And you just made €160 wandering around talking to people. I can do that.
So you just sold your body.
Right. Yeah. More or less.
Sorry, I'll bring it back. I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay. So what's interesting is that because he'd seen some success at it, I said I'll give it a shot. 8 months later, I had an office in Waterford, 25 people working for me, and was making $2,000 a week.
Nice.
In 2009, while everyone else was whinging about the economy, right? So that was interesting.
What was that? That was with the same business you were.
Yeah. We moved on to applications. So we launched electricity in Ireland. So at the time, nobody knew what it was. I had to explain to people what a wind turbine was. I had to answer questions about whether they kill pigeons and all this sort of crazy stuff.
This wasn't Cobra Group by any chance? Or
No, it was with something called per diem.
Okay.
Which means per day, and if any of you guys Latin scholars in here. So, because you used to get paid per day, right? And so, anyway, so I ended up then 3.5 years, built a lot of door-to-door sales companies. And I realized that being an anthropologist meant that I could see underlying structures to things, including conversations, including how to converse with people to get a desired result.
Very interesting.
Which I had no idea that it would apply.
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting, right?
It's funny now, just sorry to interrupt again, but similar story, but just from my own psychological studies, not in UCD, but I see the underlying motivations for conversations, not the structure, but it's like if someone says a specific thing to me, without me like trying to analyze it, I'm kind of seeing why they said that to me. Like I was working in St. John of God's Hospital there last week, and someone was just, as soon as they came into the room, they wanted to tell me all of the amazing things they had been doing, but not in a. Again, this is all about the context of it. But she was bipolar, and she just wanted to feel like she was worthwhile. And so the reason she was telling me all this is because she didn't feel like if she couldn't tell people about how successful she had been in certain areas of her life, then she didn't feel worthwhile.
Right,
anyway,
so feel judged.
So I can pick up on those little things subconsciously, which kind of is somewhat annoying because you can't just have a conversation where you're just not considering these things in your mind. But anyway, go back to yours. You could see the structures as well.
Yeah, and I always loved patterns as a child, so everything was numbers. I mean, I don't know what they might call it these days. Probably they would have some name for it, right?
Autism.
Right. So
from no, not saying
whatever it is, it's autism.
Lloyd, just to let you know, we just realised you're autistic. So.
Brilliant. Nice.
But in a good way.
You're just on the spectrum,
right? Okay,
as everyone is.
Great. So what's interesting about that is that, like, when I was walking, I used to put right foot over one line, left foot go over the next line, all these sorts of things. Apparently now it means you're a lunatic, more or less. But so they have labels for everything these days, right? But slightly off topic. So when it comes back to what I'm doing with this book is understanding that the reason why we feel this way about ourselves is because when we were children, through the eyes of a child, we made decisions and agreements with ourselves and the world about the way things are. But we were a child, so what the hell do we know, right? We don't know anything. Just absorbing things from people around us, because we've got a subconscious mind. So depending on what part of psychology or thought that you take your conclusions from, the way I understand it is that the subconscious mind is developed, I suppose it's called the super ego in psychology, before you're 7 years old.
It's the id. It is before you get older, and then your ego is developed because then the superego of society and culture and your family and that imposes their will upon you and says, no, these parts of you should be repressed and you shouldn't be them. And then so your ego is created to mediate between your desires, which is the id, which is before 7, and then the superego then is society's values that you're trying to live up to.
Right, okay. So in the model that I use is that the subconscious mind is developed before the age of realization, which is 6 or 7 thereabouts. And that you have a subconscious mind that is deductive, which means it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. And it just absorbs whatever's being told and accepts it as real.
Santa Claus, so on.
Right. Like, it's lonely at the top. Money is the root of all evil. And so as you grow, subconsciously you're having this going on. Your conscious mind can decide what it focuses on. but your subconscious mind controls 95% of your habitual behavior.
Yeah.
So when I was talking about knowing is our intellectual mind, and our intuitive mind is essentially the master.
Yeah.
You know, it's the gift.
Mm-hmm.
But we've created a society that's dismissed the gift and now honors the servant, which is
Yeah, and my whole current pathway in life is to decondition people to their over-reasoned way of approaching things, because at the end of the day, it's our intuition that's making the decisions, and then we reason afterwards to try and justify the decisions we're actually making. Like, I ate this Mars bar for this reason. Well, really, it wasn't you. It was your desire that ate the Mars bar, and now it's your reason that's trying to justify the fact that you've eaten that Mars bar.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what people are dealing with is a series of emotions being brought up based on the actions that they're taking that they can't claim responsibility for because they don't know why they're doing them.
Yes.
And they're recurrently doing them. So what I teach people is to recurrently do different actions based on having different thoughts, and we do that through repetition.
This is why when Jesus was on the cross, he said, "Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do." Yeah. Literally, they don't understand themselves.
Right.
They don't understand their motivations. They don't understand their ego. And they're making these things coming from a point of view where they feel righteous, and yet they totally don't know what they're doing. Sorry.
Right. So they're trying to do their best from their level of consciousness.
Yeah.
So it's important to remember they are trying to do their best. It's not like people are like out to damage one another. But in situations where things are toxic, or some emotions where people have felt as children are being brought into relationships with their parents, their kids, their spouse, and all those things, it becomes very destructive, and they don't know how to get out because they're in reactionary mode all the time. So we teach people how to respond, how to decide what we genuinely want based on our core value system, and then create a mission statement. So a life purpose statement, first of all, then a self-image statement, then life goals, and then also who I attract into my life. So both personally and then in a business sense. So your ideal client, you should have who I attract, and in present tense, in detail, exactly the type of person that you want to attract. And you'll notice they start to appear.
Yeah. I think if you can get people to take the big picture approach to their life and bring that into every moment, it can be really life-changing rather than drifting, you know.
Right.
Now, again, we talked about this just before we came in here, but the day-to-day, moment-to-moment has to coincide with the big picture, because if one is off kilter, then if you're only living for the future, you're always living for the future, and then you're going to lose track of things. And if you don't have a future goal, well, then you're just drifting, and you're not really you're going to come up and walk off a cliff at some point.
But which is more important then, the moment to moment or the bigger picture?
I'll let Lloyd and Christo and Sharon take over there.
It's a very good question, but I'm gonna give the wonderful people a chance to respond before me.
Right, I will start off with just, again, I'm still reading that book by Eckhart Tolle.
A New Earth, by the way.
A New Earth.
So you are Eckhart Tolle at the moment.
I am. I'm Sharhart. Okay, Sharhart Tolle. So the chapters that me and Mark kind of read, I read it out to him like a bedtime story. He was basically saying that, and correct me if I say it wrong, Mark, because you listen to it too. The moment to moment. So inner purpose and outer purpose, they do have to. They have to coincide, but it's the presence, being present. There's only now, so the now is the most important part, and everything else then is secondary. So inner purpose is first, which is everything you're doing in the present moment, and then the outer purpose is give us a goal there. What type of goal would you want? I don't
know, hitting a sales target.
Yeah,
just relating to me.
That's secondary. Yeah. So it's like if you're focusing on the now and bringing awareness to everything you're doing in the present moment, quality improves, and again, things just, like you said, things just appear and things will happen, and it's all about. I'm doing a really bad job of explaining.
No, you're not. You're doing a great job.
But if you saw Eckhart's
no.
way of explaining it,
you're comparing yourself to Eckhart Tolle without anybody else realizing. But you're
You're
great. You sound fantastic. So
but I want to be Eckhart Tolle. That is my goal.
What we can be in danger of doing is comparing our chapter 3 to someone else's chapter.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Well, no, it's just, it's not that I'm comparing. I just don't want to do him an injustice of his wonderful book. But basically, be present. act from complete awareness in the now. There only ever is the now. Time is a concept, and that will lead to better quality of relationships, quality of work, and things will then flow in abundance, and things will start appearing in your life. And obviously you still have to keep in sight your secondary goal or your outer purpose as well, but that is secondary to everything. That's basically what he's saying. So there, Sean, inner purpose and being present and in the now is the most important according to him.
That's what I suspected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Glad you understood.
Because
I have, I suppose, just been listening recently to Joe Dispenza quite a lot, right?
Know the name, but I can't picture him.
Dr. Joe.
Oh, yeah.
He's a pretty interesting guy, right? So he is a neuroscientist. He deals with neuroplasticity and a number of other things. But basically, he's been putting... He talks about the quantum field quite a lot.
Yeah.
And he talks about the fact that we can either look and use the past for a sense of meaning in the present, or we can use a vision of the future to direct our actions in the present towards that goal or that feeling, and generally a feeling. And we're using the quantum field by getting heart-mind coherence.
Yeah.
Which essentially puts us on the vibration of the
It's
universe.
the same waves, yeah.
So if you go into Zen Buddhism or Daishin in Nichiren Buddhism, if you want to be specific, they got something called Nam-myo Ho-renge Kyo, which is a mantra, but it basically means the rhythm of the universe. So it vibrates you here, and it creates that resonance between the two. So I suppose, I don't know, does that answer the question? That's the first.
what was the original question?
Which is more important.
Right. So I think it can be important to be in the present, but also with an intention. Right.
Yes.
So it's what you got your intention, and then you got your attention. So whatever your intention is that you put attention on your intention, and you got two choices of intentions, which are fear and love.
Yeah.
I've got one caveat that you'll agree with, and I've no doubt, but it's that if you do this before you come to the realization of awareness and who you actually are fundamentally, as you said, and not using your mind as you as and the tool running the actual program, sorry, you know what I mean, the tool running the being rather than the other way around,
Right.
then the goals you set then are going to be off. And I think if you first come to the awareness of that, then you follow that process you're saying, which is the goal setting, and then you're going to have your intention going forward.
I suppose, because what people do is they do. So Bob Proctor, who was in The Secret, and I studied a lot of his work. He says that there's three types of goals: A type, B type, and C type goals. So A type goals are you doing something that you already know how to do, such as, who drives a car in here?
Me.
What do you drive?
What?
What do you drive?
I drive a Mitsubishi.
How old is it?
It's 2 years.
Did you buy it new?
No.
Okay.
I
So
did. I'm still paying for it though.
Right. Let's imagine it was a brand new car, right?
Yes.
And you tell me I want to own a Mitsubishi car.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. When did you buy your car? Your answer is 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Was it new when you bought it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've known for 2 years how to buy that car. So that's not a goal. There's no growth involved. That's an A-type goal, right? So a B-type goal would be, if I do this degree and this and this happens, then I can have that. It's a B-type goal. It's exciting when you get there for about 6 months and then you go, right, so just got another job. This is great. So, but a C-type goal is based on fantasy. So when we're a child, we're told, stop looking out the window, start paying attention, but we don't actually want to pay attention because we're having great fun looking out the window. We were using our creative imagination, which is where every advance of man has ever come from. Everything we're looking at right now is an idea before it was a physical thing. You don't just build a house, grab a 4x4, couple of nails and say, right, let's see what happens. It doesn't work like that. You've got an architect, he'll do the drawings first, they know where the light's going to come from, they know what materials they're going to use, the lay of the land, everything long before they go in and build the foundations.
Yeah, Einstein talked about it all the time, about how basically all his ideas and theories and that just kind of come out of nowhere.
Right.
You know, now obviously there's a method into getting into that space where things come out of nowhere, but it's really a creative, intuitive type of thing.
Right. And it's at that. Who's the guy who apparently created the electricity?
Tesla?
No, the guy who claimed
Edison.
Right? The guy who took the credit for it.
Yeah, he did DC, direct current.
Right, he
Tesla
got
did.
AC. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So he had a thing where he used to hold a ball and have a metal kind of tray underneath, and he would nod off to sleep. And at the moment, just as he fell asleep, when it hit the thing, he would have all his best ideas. So the idea there being that in that space between
Waking
consciousness, it's lucid dreaming basically, right? So they say that if you listen to Neville Goddard, right, so he talks about feeling is the secret and gratitude is the key and all that sort of stuff. But he also says that sleep is the subconscious.
Yeah.
And that as you go in there, the last thought that you have before you fall asleep will dictate what happens in your subconscious. And your subconscious controls 95% of what you're going to do the next day and every other day.
Yeah.
So you can reprogram yourself by that. You know.
As you were saying, I've been waking up. Sharon can attest to this. Probably 2 a.m. every night. Over the last while now, it's coinciding with probably if I have magic mushroom trip. Then generally for 2 to 3 days afterwards, I'll be awake at 2 a.m., just randomly wake up and just have mad insights just coming into my head, just things clicking out of nowhere. Something that I might have heard when I was 5 suddenly makes sense to me. Simple words of songs suddenly take on a new meaning, as well as new ways of looking at problems. And that lasts for 2 or 3 hours until it somehow goes away, and then I'm back in my normal conscious, and then I struggle to get back to sleep. But you're right, it's the subconscious mind becomes available through dreams. But the problem is then when we wake up, because it is subconscious, which means it is inaccessible to the conscious mind unless it moves into the preconscious. But that's another talk about that. But because it's unconscious, generally, unless we're in that waking period where you either purposely wake yourself up or for some reason you get woken up, you've no access to the insights that arise from it unless you're in this strange in-between place.
Or unless you develop habits that are conducive to catching that information.
Yeah,
while it's still available. So there are ways that you can do that through masterminding. Now this is pretty out there.
That's what I love out there.
I want to clear this up before I begin.
Jump off a cliff, let's do it.
So if you've read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, it's a follow-on from a previous book called The 16 Laws of Success, which is a follow-on of a previous book written in 1907 called The Science of Getting Rich. But basically, it's not actually about money, although it sounds like it. It's about the methods that people put in people who've been very successful in the world have employed to get that level of success. And one of them is the concept of a mastermind. Now, ordinarily, you would imagine a mastermind is people like us. We're having a mastermind right now. So we've got the combined intelligence, combined knowledge, combined energy, combined life force, and also the quantum field that's going on in here. It's probably all around UCD right now just because we're having this conversation. Apart from the fact it's on the radio going through waves no one can see and all that weird stuff. But so you can also have a mastermind with people in your own head who you don't have to know, who don't have to be alive either.
Yeah.
This is
Totally agree.
where it gets a little bit unusual, right? So let's imagine you got a problem at work. You go into your mastermind in a dark room, and you get the problem. You write it out on a piece of paper, and you turn it around. You push it in front of one of the people that you decided is going to be in your virtual mastermind, and they solve it for you.
Wow.
And you use your knowledge of their way of thinking to solve your problem.
Now, I'm not going to take the critical view, because if I was to play devil's advocate, the questions would be very simple for me to be like, oh, that's silly, or this is why it's silly because of X, Y, and Z. But again, I've taken ayahuasca, I've dipped my finger and toes into areas of paranormal, so to speak, stuff that people would consider this way. But let's bring it back to Jungian psychology even. So Jung would say that once you process your personal, let's use the Buddhist term karma, which is just your own action and the consequences of your own action internally in your life. Once you've addressed that and you move beyond that, then you start coming into contact with the collective unconscious, which is the unconscious of humanity in general. And that stretches back to the beginning of time. And so theoretically, now I haven't accessed any of the things you're talking about, but theoretically, any information that the human race has ever come across is available to us.
Yeah, it's also known as the Akashic Records.
I would go one step further now.
Mm.
So all of the information that ever will be
Yeah, exactly.
that exists in or out of the consciousness of
Yeah.
the human race is also there and available and just waiting.
True.
So the idea for the internet was always there.
Mm-hmm.
People just didn't have the tools yet to access that potentiality. So there's lots of other things going on that we're not privy to.
Mm-hmm. Sean, you're a good critic. Come on, you can take the critical role here. Don't be afraid of being rude. Just
No, I can't think of anything too critical. There's something that sort of you talk about Buddhism, but I think don't they say something about all of time is like contained within the present moment?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds like something like it coincides with what you're saying. But
Yeah, because time is just a concept. So
but like the future and the past, are they saying the future and the past are all contained within right now?
I think probably Lloyd could answer this one best by the sound of your knowledge base. But when all of human history, past and future, are only contained in the human mind, and when you're silent in the moment, basically you're in that eternal space where there's no language, there's no idea of past and future. They're only ideas. Then just everything that is available is available. So if we're going to try and think of it in terms of, oh, will I be able to like hang out with Napoleon? I think it might be a different space than that. It's a little bit more profound and a little bit more abstract and harder to talk about because you have to lose all of your ideas where this sort of a space of exists.
I mean, I understand that like awareness would be eternal, but the finite sort of world, though,
no,
I don't.
The finite world is linear, so we see things in a linear fashion. So that's where the concept of time comes from, and that's why we have this desire to create labels and create structure, because everything again is linear, and we're trying to fit things into boxes. That's the finite being. When you're in the infinite being, then time is no longer a concept, it's just all one thing, and that's why we see these abstract structures within like a psychedelic experience, because it's all one, all one being.
Maybe I could share,
jump in.
share a psychedelic experience. Maybe that would be nice.
Yeah.
So I was living in Santiago de Chile in South America, and I decided that I would do ayahuasca for the first time. Not really knowing what to expect. I'd taken magic mushrooms a couple of thousand times, so I had a
that
bit
was
of
smart.
An idea.
That was a smart start.
I had a bit of an idea, so in terms of opening up neural pathways and that type of thing, but I was not prepared for this. So
Mark just said this to me earlier because I said, I'm thinking about ayahuasca now.
Oh, calm down, Sharon.
Calm down. So,
I will.
yeah, so but it was thoroughly enjoyable, but it was incredibly profound. So I went to a place called Cajón del Maipo, which is in the mountains near the border with Argentina, and it was in a retreat. Everyone's wearing white gowns and stuff, right? Which is pretty cool. And then the whole room was pitch black.
Yeah.
So I've done it in Ireland, by the way, and it wasn't treated the same way, and therefore I didn't have the same experience. But then again, your first is always your first and stuff like that. But it just didn't measure up at all. And so it was in complete darkness. So as you can imagine, if you were to take mushrooms, for example, in complete darkness where you're isolated and there's somebody singing at the top of their lungs while rattling things which you can't see, it would be pretty full on, right?
Same experience.
It'd be pretty full on. So some of the tribes in South America do it in the dark. Other ones do it as something where it's more communal. Everybody's about as far away as we are, so maybe 2 feet away. You have a bucket under the chair for purging.
For purging.
I wish I had a chair.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then they sanctified the space, and then they blew tobacco up your nose, and then you snort tobacco, liquid tobacco, and all that sort of stuff. And then you gotta take the ayahuasca from with your left hand, because it's the side of the heart. And then if you take and you're not ready yet after the second song, you have to request medicina if you want to have some more, because you need to take a little bit more, right? So at the time I thought, Okay, well, I'm here anyway, so...
Man, this story is eerily similar to mine.
Yeah, well, I think it's a Celtic behaviour.
I'm like, she'll be grand. Give us a bit more of that stuff.
Give us 3.
Exactly, same. He said, give us 3, please. Yeah, same.
They didn't give me 3, but I had the second one. This is like before I had ascended or descended, depending on what you look at it. And anyway, so I had the other one. 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 seconds later, the world turned inside out. So I was up to my chest in the primordial mud of the what's that big? The Amazon River, right? But there's no river there yet; it's just sludge, and I'm up to here, right? And I'm speaking to the Pachamama, which is the grandmother of all plants, which is where ayahuasca comes from. And there's all this crazy singing going on, and there's all colours everywhere. But then I sink under the ground, which is not freaking me out, by the way.
Okay, right.
Okay. And then suddenly I'm a seed. Right, exactly right. So I can smell potassium, I can taste calcium, all these types of things that can't be possible in the sense of being a human and all that. And then I say we because I'm conscious of all these different elements and their smells, and I can feel them feeling me, and etc. And then roots go out in every direction.
From you.
Mm-hmm. And then if you ever put your hand into mud, you can feel it everywhere on your hand, but I can feel it everywhere on every root.
Oh, wow.
For 15,000 kilometers in every direction.
Oh, my God.
As they branch, and they continue to branch. Like, it's pretty...
That's mad.
Overwhelming would be a
Phantom roots.
mild way of putting it. So then this went on anyway, and then there was more shaking. And then...
As in someone rattling, or you shaking yourself?
Like your body shaking.
Well, I wasn't conscious of the body.
Okay.
So,
okay, great.
You were a seed.
I was a seed.
Okay.
Okay.
So the seed is shaking.
The seed is shaking.
And then a shoot comes up and then goes to the surface. Hits the surface. There's no foliage to protect it, so it burns. But the other ones are coming up so fast that eventually they create a canopy, so I can feel both the heat of the sun on the top and the mild heat on the bottom.
Whoa.
Because I am all of them at the same time. This went on and on. I could go on. It went on for a very long time. Through the birth of civilization, the entire way up to me sitting in the chair. I was not really prepared for that, as you can appreciate.
How are you prepared for that?
How were you not prepared for that? Come
Now,
on, mate.
when you said this went on for a very long time, did you feel like you lived several lifetimes in this space, which can be quite scary if that's what you had experienced?
Well, not only did I live lifetimes, I was people also through that time.
Yeah. But as in, did you feel like you'd been gone for hundreds of years when you returned, or no, you had a kind of strange just time distortion?
Not really, no. I felt like I had been gifted a memory of the entire of life on Earth.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so I was trying. I had to leave the next day. I'm like walking around. How do I
move on?
Supposed to communicate with the rest of humanity after this experience. Like, what do I say? Even? Like, can I talk about this? You know,
I find it difficult to communicate with people from small doses of magic mushrooms. So I can't imagine as being a seed and the whole of the universe and life from the beginning.
It was very strange, yeah. So
yeah, I wouldn't know.
I feel blessed. It depends on who you ask them, how you might view that term, but I feel
you got grace. You got some grace.
Yeah. I feel very grateful for that. Yeah. And it was after that, to answer your earlier question, how that book happened.
Oh wow!
So I came back from South America, and the lady who co-wrote the book with me, Jackie Carroll, had created or started the process of creating the first ever virtual reality vision board. So where you can literally put goggles on, instead of trying to visualize your ideal world, your ideal life, with your eyes closed. 8% of the world can't see in pictures, apparently. First of all, and then the majority of people can't stick on one image. It just changes all the time because we have a lack of focus, right? It's just because we haven't practiced willpower.
candle staring.
It's one of your 6 higher faculties, which is what we go into in the book, which is one of which is the creative imagination. But when she had been writing the book with a friend of hers, her friend had said she didn't want to do it anymore. Oh, too excited. So, said she didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, oh, really? I'll write it with you. And so it evolved from there, yeah.
Nice.
We decided we were going to do a course to help people to, first of all, focus on not just the goal, but their life's purpose, then get rid of a lot of the things that are holding people back from living their full selves, and going into the higher faculties of the mind, the 7 universal laws, how they apply, all that sort of stuff, which is on the Emerald Tablet, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Nope.
No.
I've heard of it, but I've never actually looked into it. But I actually was told by a lovely man to read more into the Emerald Tablet, and never did it. Sorry.
Okay, so it's Hermes Trismegistus.
I've read a lot about of hermetics, all right.
Right.
I haven't heard about the Emerald Tablet, though.
Right, it's just where he wrote down the 7 laws,
Okay.
universal laws, right? Long before any of the current predominant world views of religions came
Pretty
along.
much all religion is based off his stuff. Not all of it, but
More or
most of
less,
it. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of commonalities if you look closely.
Is he an ancient Greek or Roman or something?
Before.
Wait, who?
Before that,
Hermes.
Oh, Hermes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
from that region of all
Yeah.
the 3 major religions came from within 200 kilometers of one another in the Middle East.
Hermetics is pretty much underground now because it's adopted a lot by the occult. A lot of occult stuff will go into hermetics, and so that's kind of somewhat brandished it with a bit of a scary brush to a lot of people. So people try and stay away from that, but really there's huge knowledge in there. Huge knowledge. Anyway.
Right. Universal laws, when applied properly, shouldn't go against the rights of other people. However, you can apply whatever you want,
You
however
can
you like.
flip everything upside down, yeah.
Which
It's
is
freedom, yeah.
often knowledge in the wrong hands can be somewhat dangerous. So, I mean, knowledge itself is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So, knowing what the 7 universal laws are and applying them are not the same thing. Same way as not having a degree in commerce doesn't mean you know how to make any money,
Yeah.
for example.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's sort of what we teach, and then we created a course which came in 18 seconds to me. And I wrote the course based off an 18-second experience, which was
Fantastic.
pretty cool, yeah. So we're bringing a group through that course at the moment. You might put that link in there as well. I think maybe 40 people through it since the beginning of last year.
I'm really disappointed that we don't have more time this time. This is one of the
Very good.
podcasts that really could have gone for 3 hours. And unfortunately, we only have one.
Yeah, well,
Which is really
we will
annoying.
soon.
What's the name of the book?
Visualization to Realization. Using your imagination to keep on your path to success by Jackie Carl and Lloyd Chambers.
If anyone's interested.
Is this in bookshops?
No.
Okay.
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
If you want a signed copy, you can come and find me.
Most of the best books aren't on a lot of shops. I've got the book beside my bed at the moment that I only just touched on. It's called I think it's The Secret of All Ages, I think it's called, and it's all hermetics and all that kind of stuff as well. So I'm just trying to get into that myself at the moment, but I think there's a lot of knowledge in there. Yeah.
It's a huge book.
Where can the people find you? All the social media. Plug it now.
Plug it now. Okay, so
Matrix.
on Twitter is to see is to have.
Okay.
On Facebook, you'll find me at Mr. Lloyd Chambers. Not too hard to find. There's a picture of me with Russell Brand in the picture. So
Nice.
We're holding my book, funny enough. So,
Oh, wow.
which is funny because he's holding it with his hand over the 2 names. So it looks like it looks like I just got a signature on his
That's what I
book.
thought. I looked at it and
Right.
I was like, that.
Yeah. Everybody, whoever designed it, which was not me, they could have put the names on the other side. That wouldn't have happened.
It's kind of,
I'll have to get lefties from now on.
So I know you're plugging at the moment, and we'll definitely give you time to do that. But tell us as briefly as you can about. We touched on it at the very start. You were in Vegas got an
Right.
award for what in particular, and now you're going to South Africa.
Right. So I got an award for helping 14 people build a successful business in the alkaline coffee industry.
Okay, that was for the coffee industry. Fantastic.
Yeah. And now I'm going to South Africa. Why? Because Organo are creating opportunity for people because it's a franchise online business. And our CEO who was talking in Vegas was saying that he got a phone call. I can't remember the title that they have in South Africa, but the equivalent of the governor of Texas. Right? So
Okay.
a pretty important person. Rings him up and says, thank you so much for what you've done with Organo here, because you've created 3,000 economic opportunities in South Africa since the 6th of October till the end of the year. The mining industry were 600. So I'm going to South Africa to go and bring that opportunity to people in South Africa. And they don't have any problems with money down there, right? Except for they need more of it, right? So, so that's why I'm going to South Africa.
Nice. 2 minutes. So do you want to talk about the sorry, you want to say?
Yeah, so just get it out there, your Instagram as well.
Oh, yeah, Instagram.
Instagram is
I think you changed the lens.
You Change the Lens. Yeah.
Okay.
And then also you can find me on Instagram under Lloyd's Coffee Corner.
And just one more time, the website as well.
Yeah.
It's changethelens.myorganogold.com.
Cool.
Mm.
Very cool.
Well,
Well,
it's my pleasure.
Lloyd,
Thanks for coming, Lloyd.
honestly, if you can find time to come back again, we could do this 3 or 4 times because you're a knowledgeable man, and we'd love to have a more group conversation as well, because this was all about you and that was fantastic. But I'm sure that, like, if we have input from everybody and we throw questions at you and you throw questions at us, we'll have some serious conversations in here. So
And I only live around the corner.
oh, amazing.
Oh, brilliant.
Amazing. And hopefully now, sorry UCD guys, but hopefully once this gets shut down, we'll have access to another studio and we'll keep this thing rolling as well
we have that
throughout
coming.
the summer.
So, yeah, soon.
Are you expecting to be shut down any moment?
Just
The
semester
door get
ends.
kicked in?
Yeah, pretty much. It says finish up at 58 minutes and we're at 59 now. So
Yeah, yeah.
Let's all say goodbye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Goodbye,
Guys.
guys. Much
Bye.
love. One love.
I'm really sad that it's over.
I know,
Anyway,
it's brilliant, isn't it?
I'll
you,
talk
Lloyd.
to you again soon. And thanks to Sharon, thanks to Sean, thanks to Christo, and thanks to Lloyd. And
you.
we'll see you all guys next week. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Good luck.